Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the New Media Show. My name is Todd Cochran. Of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Rob Greenlee. Good this morning. Good morning, Rob.
Hey,
How are you?
good morning, Todd. It's great to be here again. Getting close to the dog days of summer, but the weather's great, so I have no complaints up here in Seattle. There's no rain.
Well, that's good. Hey, Rob, you're just a little bit quiet. If you want to tweak it up a little bit, that'd be great. But otherwise,
Okay.
yeah, this morning, good old Blab failed us again, along with other people, too. So it's about a 50-50 shot over there, whether or not it works or not.
Oh yeah. That's what I noticed. It looks like a lot of other shows are having struggles this morning too. Even Dave Jackson doing his show, he was just continuously trying to log in. I could tell. So, oh well,
Yeah.
things don't always work.
Yep. And when it doesn't, we'll go back to the rock steady. But I think we're in the middle of the doldrums of summer. Well, actually, I think I took those lines right out of your mouth.
Yes, that's all right. It can be emphasized because exactly what's going on. Yes, there's not much going on.
Yeah, that's for sure. Let me turn you up here.
Oh, really? Am I that low? Because I'm actually speaking up pretty loud. I figured I would yell into my microphone. So
Yeah, it was. I don't know. It's down for some reason, but
okay,
anyway, I just put you up 5 dB. Hopefully that.
you did.
Yeah.
Well, I feel nice and uplifted this morning. Thank you.
So I was we had just a little bit of a chat this week in that the once again, there's this ongoing conversation about podcasts and specifically the word podcast.
Yeah, that's the subject that never entirely goes away, right?
Yeah. And this one was with Steve Goldstein. And, I like Steve. He's a great guy. He's doing good stuff in the space. And again, I think he was just a teeny bit on the defensive because I guess something came up with a conversation he was in talking about, they think they're doing podcasts or they believe they're doing podcast. And
Well, it's the
um,
whole audible question. Do we want to be inclusive of kind of the online radio practices, stuff that are like considered to be kind of in proprietary platforms, and do we want to consider those to be podcasts and include them in the name, even though they're not using RSS and they're not doing enclosures and they're not in iTunes and they're in their own little kind of paywall environments. Do we consider those to be podcasts? Right? That's the question.
yeah. And I had actually said that, I've kind of stuck with my, fallback. If the show is not available via an RSS feed where they can, and that's just, and those of you that are listening, they're non-podcasters. The RSS feed is really what made podcasting possible, being able to syndicate the show, with a enclosure tag, and basically all it is some code in that feed that allows iTunes and all the other places to pick that media up and distribute it and syndicate it.
Yeah, it's the enclosure tag that's
Yeah,
part of the item list in the RSS feed. Yeah, it's really simple stuff. I
yeah.
mean, I guess that's why they call it really simple syndication.
So, and it's been to much consternation over the years. A lot of people have had challenges with it, but I think our thought process is, and if you can't subscribe to it, it's just an audio show on the internet.
Hmm.
Audio, and they've been making audio programming for the internet long before podcasting came in.
Exactly. That's
Yeah,
true. I mean, I was one of those folks that were making shows before there was podcasting. So, and back then they were either radio shows or they were just called shows.
yeah,
Um, but most of the time they're actually called radio shows because I mean a lot of the shows that were available online were actually shows that were kind of terrestrial based broadcast shows at the time. There weren't a lot of independent audio creators in the earlier days of this that were just doing shows online. Uh, it just there just weren't very many of them at all.
and the
Uh,
reason for it was what got everyone excited about this space to begin with.
yep, yep,
To think that you could, and really what the appeal was the thought that you could automate and deliver the content to a listener and bypass and not have ABC, CBS, NBC, what is now iHeartRadio, what is not have to go through a gatekeeper.
Yep.
You know,
that was the whole idea behind it, right? Was to level the media distribution playing field, and RSS enabled that. And I think what we're kind of resisting in this conversation is the pull back to proprietary platforms, which is where we started with this, which is kind of what radio has been. Radio has been a proprietary distribution, more of a restriction on distribution. It's kind of a limitation on distribution that's been out there. And when the internet started up, those limitations all went away, and a lot of the folks that were working businesses, radio networks or whatever, had this exclusive hold on media distribution. And RSS opened that up. And, there has been continual pressure on the part of some entities out there that want to get the control back again. And I'm not saying that's what's really behind this. I think what's really behind this is that podcasting is kind of a cool medium now.
Yeah.
And radio and a lot of the kind of more traditional media is kind of not as much cool, and they kind of want to kind of make it part of them, right? Make podcasting part of what they're doing,
right?
And in some ways, it depends on whether or not we want to be purists. And I think if you were to talk to Dave Weiner, who was the original creator of RSS and this whole medium, really, he'll tell you the same conversation. He was trying to create an open medium and an open platform. And there's been continual pressure to pull it back into proprietary platforms, and we're kind of seeing that generally across the web and the internet right now. Look at Facebook, and back in the early days, it was America Online, right, Todd? I mean, there's been this tug of war that's been going on around open and closed for many years in the online space, and this is just a little bit of another example of that.
Yeah, I think if I really think about it, I don't. I'm not against expansion of the protocols. I'm not. I'm not. If someday they decide that a podcast needs to be syndicated through an OPML feed, which is really kind of just a glorified RSS feed, or some sort of
list.
or some sort of new whiz bang thing that's going to make the space better. I'm not saying that we have to stay with RSS. I'm saying I think we're all open to any type of, changes. But right now, there's nothing. No one's changing anything, and nothing.
Well, then there's nothing on the table.
No,
nobody's proposing anything that will be a replacement for what the open syndication strategy is in the podcasting space right now. And I don't think that there's a lot of support for going proprietary. There's no advantage to it right now. I mean, if there was an advantage to going to a proprietary distribution platform, Apple would probably be the closest. But the problem is it's based on open standards. So it's kind of hard to say that Apple is a proprietary platform. In some ways they are, in some ways they're not. So I think that this hybrid model, I think, is where we will remain. I don't, Todd, do you see a time in the future? I mean, maybe as you think about maybe voice activated systems like Alexa and Siri and things like that, when consumption starts to move probably more based on discovery and management through voice control, maybe we'll see a little bit more of a proprietary platform domination in this space. But I believe it's still going to be based on RSS. That's how those systems are going to get that content.
Well, if you look at like you said, look at Alexa or not Alexa, but look at the Echo or the Dot from Amazon.
It's all the same thing, but
You know, so it's voice activated to listen to the show, but that underlying stuff is still being fed by RSS.
RSS, exactly. And
Right.
and what is there that's better to do that?
Right.
Nothing.
Now, if Audible makes a channel for, or builds something for that platform, to be able to put their media over there where you can get access to it. But I think right now the only place that you can get the Audible content is on audible.com.
Yeah, and that's behind DRM and a paywall.
Yeah.
That's not podcasting. I'm sorry.
No, it's not.
But
go ahead.
I mean, I think I think it just depends. I think that there's also been a tug of war over the years around what the term podcast really means. I know people have used the term to describe live podcasting. There's some that will say what we do, Todd, here is live podcasting. But the truth of the matter is that word doesn't make sense because podcasting is not live.
No. But we're doing live to a miniature portion of the audience that normally gets this show too.
Yeah, exactly. And we do a live show.
Right.
We don't do a live podcast. So, and I think by using the term live show, we're actually being accurate with what we do.
Yeah.
We typically don't refer to a specific term to the distribution of this show when it's live. There's no specific, I mean, other than, we're live streaming.
Yep.
So it is a little bit of a unique, analogy between the terms that are used here. But this show is also a podcast too.
Yep.
So it's, we're kind of a little bit of an exception. Most people don't do video in the podcasting space.
Right.
But nonetheless, the term has meant something different to different people over the years. It's a little bit of a struggle that I've seen in the space since I started working in the space, is that some people on the content side will look at podcasts as a kind of content. And then there's others that are more kind of business focused in the medium that are focused on the term podcast to refer to the specific distribution approach. So I guess it depends on, where you are in the medium and how you look at the space. And because, I mean, if you draw the distinction between the term podcast as it relates as a comparison to radio, you can look at it from distribution and or content. What's the difference between radio content and podcast content? There is a difference. Though I think a lot of people would like to think that, radio and podcasting are the same. I don't know. What do you think, Todd?
Well, it's kind of funny, but if a radio station is putting their stuff out as a podcast, we can't call ourselves radio because radio is broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
As a, terrestrial and over the air, tune into AM 890.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it makes the flip the other way, if that was the point you were looking for. But, and by the way, in Facebook, sorry, the post is now public instead of just my friends. I don't know why it was the other way around. It's just, to me, it's kind of funny that that once again we have third parties that are rejoining the space or coming into the space and they're trying to redefine it. It should never, it is what it is. And those of us that are listening, or those of you that are podcasters listening, it's probably a little sick of it. But at the same time, I think it's important that we are able to make sure that independent content creators are not feeling that I want them to feel there's room in the space, understand where we came from. I want them to understand that we built this space. Independent content creators built this space.
Yep.
There was a number of groups that joined pretty quickly, NPR and some of those other folks, but we were, essentially the ones that us as podcasters, independent content creators, build it. So when someone comes in to try to redefine the name, we have to be careful, and often it's driven by financial decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and in some ways, in the long run, that's going to more and more come into this medium. I mean,
Right.
as on demand audio podcasting grows,
Mm-hmm.
we are going to more and more challenge radio. It's just inevitable. And once, I've been saying this for a while now. I don't know what the date is when those growth and decline curves are going to cross between radio and podcasting, but it's going to be in a really fascinating time. I don't know if it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years out, when the size of the audience for podcasting or on-demand medium matches the broadcast radio side. But you also mentioned, I think on Twitter this past week, that there's going to be a time when radio is going to realize that they made a mistake, or didn't jump on board as quickly, and they're going to panic.
Right. And I think too that there's going to be a segment of individuals that are they are going to be ahead of the curve. They're going to have known that this, and they're going to be the early adopters. I think the comment, what it was the exact comment I said. What was it? Boy, there's my Twitter feed has really been crazy.
I could tell you my comment was that it's going to be like the boiling frogs
Yeah.
analogy.
Yeah.
Where that water is going to get warmer and warmer around the radio folks. And as the years go by, that pressure to do something different is going to grow. And
right.
It's not going to be like one day, the opportunity is going to present itself. It's going to be something that the pressure is going to grow on them.
Yep. And there's going to be a panic is going to ensue.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's hard to say when that panic will ensue. And
yeah.
Probably that panic will ensue at different times as people feel that water getting warmer.
Yeah. Oh, here's what I said. The smart ones are getting on the train. Those scoffing the space will be behind the Powerball when panic sets in.
Yeah. And not all those radio stations are going to make the conversion.
No.
And I think that's the challenge. I've been thinking about that a lot. Actually, I had lunch, I don't know, with the radio guy here in the Seattle market that just quit his job, and he's trying to build a business around on demand.
Wow.
So he's trying to do that. So you can feel that there's people on the radio side that are looking to the future and jumping out of it to start plowing that direction.
Right.
Like Todd, you and I did many years ago. I mean, I started doing this stuff on the radio myself, and it was always just a pathway to create a show, get audience, and I always wanted to do it online. So it was,
and I think for me, I just kind of happened into this thing. I was sitting in a hotel room, right place, right time. If I'd probably missed them talking about it, I probably would have never ended up being a podcaster. So it's just weird how life throws you these curveballs. There was a comment thread on Facebook. Someone was asking to take advertising or not take advertising, and it turned into a surprisingly a large number of individuals saying, I hate advertising in podcast, and you shouldn't do it. You should monetize your show through the business relationships you make on your show. And while I don't disagree, that's a great strategy to implement. But it was I was a little surprised because a few people that I know in the space, they've been in the space a while, are saying, well, don't start advertising in your show till you hit 15 to 20,000 listeners per episode. And I kind of chuckled a little bit because I thought, well, they just eliminated 95% of the podcasting space by saying that. If you have to have 15,000 listeners on your show to start advertising, there's going to be a pile of companies that are going to go out of business in the preceding weeks because there's just the high bulk of shows are much smaller. So and I understand their thought process there. Is it worth your while? But, what we've been seeing, and I know I switched topics on us here, so I apologize, but
It's okay.
what we've been able to do is, especially on some niche advertising deals, I've been able to the media buyers say, "Oh, I want this particular show," and I'm like, well, the audience, let's say for example, was like 1,300 listeners per episode, and I said we can't go in there and offer them a $25 CPM because they're just going to say that's it, that's all, $25 a show, and I'm not going to do that. So
Yeah.
what I've been able to get the media buyers to do is to set some minimums, $100, $150, $200 minimum for a smaller show that's, that advertiser really wants to get in, with the understanding that they're not going to get the, if you do the math backwards and they're expecting to get a new customer for every $20 that they spend, we have to also make them realize that, okay, you want in this show bad enough, you want exposure to that audience, but, don't hold me accountable when, we don't get 10 signups. We might, but don't hold me accountable when we do. And I've actually, for the first time in a while, had some media buyers, okay. I mean, they didn't even blink. So that's a good sign.
Yeah. Well, Todd, I was thinking about this the other day. Do you think on smaller shows it actually makes more sense to do CPA deals with them versus the CPM deals,
Mm-hmm.
just because there's probably a greater likelihood that they're going to make more money in reality?
No. And here's why. Unless you want to do, okay, the only way we found CPAs work, this is really a weird dynamic, and if someone can figure out why one thing works and another doesn't, please let me know. But there has to be something psychological going on, because on CPM deals, when I have shows that are essentially doing the same copy as they would have done on a CPA deal, the performance is always much, much higher. I don't seem to get as big of a bounce when we do pure, and I hate doing pure CPA for that fact, because, well, I think what is, the podcaster thinks, oh, there's no risk to the advertiser. Maybe I'll get some money out of this. Maybe they just don't put their heart into it as if they knew they're getting written a check. So if you can get a content creator to do as good a job on a CPA deal as they would on a CPM, yeah, I think you're right, Rob. I think they would be better off to do CPA. A good way to test this is for a show to go to Commission Junction, sign up for an account, find some products or companies that you're excited about, that you can get behind, and sign up for a Commission Junction deal with them. And then what you need to do then is treat that. And of course, you have to be careful, because some Commission Junction deals don't allow, they just want banners only, so you have to be careful. But treat that as if that was your actual paying sponsor and see what happens. And you're going to have to do that for a 90-day run to see how well the test goes. But you have to treat it as if they were paying you, whatever your rate is for your show at that time. I think that's a good way to test it. But I don't know.
Well, some of the advertisers that normally do CPM deals do also do CPA deals.
Yeah.
So you can actually look like that you're doing a CPM
Right.
advertiser, but you're actually doing a CPA.
Yeah.
And I think it's a matter of finding a CPA advertiser, and what CPA is, if you don't know, is cost per acquisition. So it's more of a pay for performance model than it is a pay per audience model.
You get a reward for every time someone buys something.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have great targeting in your show, your audience matches up really well with that advertiser. Sometimes you can make $8 or $9 per customer purchase
Right.
or sign up or whatever. And if you think about it, let's say your show has 1,000 listeners, right? If you did a CPM deal, just like Todd was saying, you'd make $25.
Yeah, if you could only get a
But
CPM and versus flat. Yep.
yeah, exactly. But if you did a CPA deal and you made $9 per customer and you got, let's say, 10 customers,
Right.
you basically made like
90. Yeah,
$90
effective CPM of
versus
90. Yep.
versus 25, right? So that's the opportunity there, and I think it really gets back to um, really thinking about who your audience is and knowing who your audience is, and then going after those CPA advertisers that really match with that. And I think you can really convert and make a little bit more money. You're not going to get rich doing this, but you're going to
Right.
at least pay for your hosting and pay for some of your time.
One of the chat rooms said affiliate links kind of help get you started. That's true.
Yeah, it can.
It can, and really a commission junction is an affiliate deal.
Yep.
So, but I think what you have to really, I did some test because my show, I've got a fantastic audience. I did some test about a year and a half ago, and I did some tracking. I basically ran an ad a little bit later in my program, not too much, maybe I do an hour and 10 minutes. Maybe I did it at about the 30-minute mark where the first ad comes in at under 10 minutes. And it was purely an affiliate deal. I went over and signed up for one, or I'd gotten introduced to a company or some function. And what I found is that that deal wasn't unique. So let's just use a company. Let's just say like I was traveling a lot. So let's say I put Hilton up there as a commission junction affiliate link, and I'm encouraging people to on the show when they travel to use Hilton and to use my click through link. And I don't think that was the example, but that Hilton deal. Via commission junction did not offer any discounts. It didn't offer any, and maybe it was pay for two, get for one, or maybe there was something like that. But for the most part, it was just basically click on me to go, buy your hotel room. And I think really what makes a big difference on the affiliate marketing is that when you can secure something unique. And matter of fact, if an advertiser ever comes to us and says we want to do an affiliate deal, the first thing I do is, after I've talked to the vendor and gotten the details on the deal, I go over to Commission Junction and I look for that vendor there, and I find out what they're offering. And if I can find deals better than what they are offering to our podcasters, we decline to do the deal unless they can come up with something better.
Better, yeah. Or a higher commission or whatever, right?
Right. And more than not, a better deal for the listener, because in the end,
that too.
In the end, you have to have some sort of
strong offer. You have to have a strong offer. Yeah.
And that helps. Or a higher commission rate.
Yep.
But,
or both.
Yeah.
You probably really need to have both in order to really make it work.
And because I'm working on a commission platform where, we take a percentage of the ad deal, if the commission junction deal is the same amount of money that, if it's an even Steven deal, it doesn't make any sense for me to do it because I'm taking 30, they can go to commission junction, sign up, get 100% of the reward money, where you're doing the deal with me is a 70-30 split. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So, for us, that's another part of the challenge, being the company that's presenting the deal to the podcasters. We have to find, a deal that's beneficial to both of us. And,
do you try and target that advertiser to the podcaster for the podcaster, or do you throw it out to everybody and let the podcaster kind of filter
On the affiliate deals,
which
because most of the times the company doesn't care, and that might be another part of the reason for as lower success rates is that just any show can get on the affiliate deal. But I can't tell you when the last time I did an affiliate deal. I've done some hybrids. Hybrid deals I like a lot is whereas the content creators guaranteed a base, and then they get a little bit lower reward than they normally would. And
I
that,
think that's a good model, I think.
yeah, I like that base. I like that
Mhm.
deal the best when it
Yeah.
comes to any type of affiliate deal.
I hadn't thought about that before. That actually makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm supposed to say this or not, but truth be known, that's what my deal with GoDaddy is that I get a
Mhm.
base, guaranteed base, and then based on performance, I get paid X amount of dollars per certain type of an account.
Yeah.
So,
salespeople have had those kind of deals before.
yeah,
I mean, you have an incentive to do a really good job with your sales,
yeah,
approach and presentation, but you
mhm,
have like this guarantee that you're going to be happy, and to a lot of companies that have had sales representatives, that's been important. I mean, you don't want to necessarily starve your salespeople,
mhm,
because then they can get disgruntled and move on, right?
yeah,
So, yeah. So, I mean, it's an interesting model for podcasting. I don't think that's pretty wide. That's very widespread, though, Todd.
no,
I haven't heard a lot of examples of that.
no. It's typically CPM flat rate, and then again, the only time really, to be honest with you, Rob, the only time I do that type of a base plus bonus is when the vendor's really good and it makes sense, and they're scared to do a full. And I just
Hmm.
basically, based on my experience, I tell them, hey, you've got a competing deal out there. I need to have a little more bread on the table to go to the content creator. So,
Yeah.
that's when that's been employed. I don't want to toot our own horn here, but we did. I don't know if you saw our announcement earlier in the week, but we've had to make a fundamental change to our business for working with podcasters and advertising. And
So,
go
what's
ahead.
the shift that you've made?
Shift is I need a higher commitment level. I don't want someone to basically sign a contract saying that you're exclusive to us, but we're basically setting in timelines for replies,
Oh,
what we're going to do, what they're going to do, how they're going to inform us if they don't have inventory, and essentially here's the gist of the whole thing: is the first email I send them with the deal. When they reply, I want 95% commitment level, that they're in or they're out. Because what I've had been happening a lot, and what's forced this shift, was I was getting a commitment level back from the content creator, go through how it is, going through the deal with the media buyer, and that could be a 2 weeks or a month, and getting a signed contract, and then coming back and launching the campaign, and the content creators say, "Oh, I changed my mind." Um, that is painful.
yeah, yeah.
So we're basically also putting some, if you say yes and then you say no later, and it's not because of a death in the family or the deal changed so much that you don't like the terms,
Hmm.
you could end up being removed as a priority partner. I just, it's, and then we're going to change our split. Those that do sign up as a priority partner, where they are going to adhere to our what we're going to do and what they're going to do guidelines. They'll still be on 70/30. Those that do not become a priority partner, which I know are end up going to be people that are going to be harder to work with from a timeline and more risk on my part, we're going to reduce the revenue split to 50/50 with those folks. And I really hate doing that, but I can't be putting 30 shows on a deal and then 7 shows change their mind for no reason.
mid process, right?
mid-process, or actually sign contract, then saying,
And
"Oh, we're not going to participate."
uh, hmm, yeah,
And it's and it makes sense if I come to you, Rob, and I say got a deal, and here it is. It's just how much you're going to get paid. This is what the frequency rate's going to be. We're going to have banner on your website is optional. We're going to have this basic stuff that we're going to tell you in the email. Share as much information. You should be able to make a decision from that. And when we do, we want the inventory locked up.
hmm
At the same right, when we're working deals with media buyers, sometimes they say, forget it. And so I'll have a timeline responsibility of going back to the podcaster and saying, hey, the vendor said we're not going to proceed, and unlock that inventory. Or if they get an offer, and we're not changing things, that we're still allowing them to go out and do their own deals on their own, because that's our philosophy of our company. But
yeah,
if they get a deal that's come in to them, if someone's called them up and say, I want to advertise on your show, and you're like, oh man, Todd's got my inventory locked up for this time period, we just want them to call or email and say, hey, can I have my inventory back? It's a lot easier for me to say, yeah, I can give you the inventory back, and go to the media buyer and say, hey, you guys have taken too long. That inventory's gone,
hmm
versus the content creator just start a deal, and then when I come back and say, okay, we're ready to launch, say, hey, I
no, we're
sold that
done.
inventory. It's gone.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
it's just basically trying to get a little bit, make them understand, or to have a higher commitment level, so that we don't, because I have to go back to the media buyer and say, hey, 7 shows said no. And they're like, why? They don't know why. And then go to explain that. And then the next thing you know, you've got a media buyer saying, don't work with them because they go through the deal, and then half or 20% of their shows don't participate.
yeah, yeah. It doesn't
That's
doesn't send the right signal to the advertiser.
no,
Yeah.
no, and those podcasters are hurting the space.
hmm
Those of you on YouTube, is the video okay? It's saying it might be buffering a little bit. Just let me know if we're on newmediashow.com it's back to normal. newmediashow.com/live. Yeah, so it's maybe my bandwidth here is sucking today.
So, Todd, I wanted to talk about on the show today a little bit about dynamic insertion.
Okay,
It seems to be an issue or I don't know if it's an issue, just a segment of the podcasting advertising business
mm-hmm.
that seems to be of growing importance to many. I wanted to have a guest on today that was involved in that side.
Sure.
I wasn't able to get it secured, but I'll keep trying. But
Yeah.
Just from what you're seeing out there, how important to the space is dynamic insertion from the standpoint of, as you look about where the industry is today and where it's going, and because I get a sense out there, just to share a little bit of my view of it, is that it's almost like a lot of the bigger companies and the bigger shows want to have that capability in their toolkit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But very few people are actually using it.
Hmm.
What's your thought on that?
I think you hit the nail on the head. And here's the reason why these companies want to use insertion. It allows them to scale faster, and then it's not as much work to do.
Well, it's also able. They're thinking that it's also able to monetize archived content too.
Well, good luck with that.
I know.
Maybe they're starting to figure out that the archive content isn't as big of a
Opportunity.
yeah. Maybe there's not as much inventory there that they thought there was there. I know how much archived inventory is available, and let me just put it this way: the money is in the new content.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I think that's always been the case. And
Yeah.
then also you've got, a similar scenario with archive content around premium too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's podcasters out there that are making their, like their first or their newer shows available
Mm-hmm.
for free and have those ad supported. And then all the archives are monetized based on a premium paid model. And I've just kind of wondered on that model too. I know that some of the really big podcasters are making money doing that, and growing amounts of money, but it's kind of a slow grow based on what I'm hearing.
It's really content relevant,
Mm-hmm.
being that.
Well, it has to be evergreen content for it to work, right?
Right, has to be. And again, and we've talked about this many times on the show. The ancillary data shows that less than 10% of actual podcast content is actually truly evergreen. People say again and again, I've said this 1,000 times. People say their content's evergreen all the time, but because they're creating evergreen content, but 90% of shows will get 90% of their downloads within the first 96 hours of the show being online. So that other 10%, now, and I've said this too, there are that 10%, that content's hugely valuable.
Yeah. And if you look at, to kind of go back to the dynamic insertion conversation here a little bit, I get a sense that a lot of the business development deals and a lot of the acquisitions and a lot of the talk amongst the industry, the larger players in the space, kind of the startups, that has been kind of like the core of a lot of the deals that have been going on, is that dynamic insertion technology. And
but the thing is, Rob, it's easy.
Yeah.
It's simple to build.
Well, it also dovetails to programmatic too, right? So
Right.
We're kind of on this pathway with quite a few companies in this space where we're trying to duplicate streaming radio. That's part of what's happening here.
Right.
And dynamic insertion has been involved. Not so much dynamic insertion into downloadable content, but dynamic insertion into streams has been around for a decade. So it's something that's part of the audio landscape that's been going on for a long time.
Here's my prediction: those companies that are trying to do programmatic, they they better not be banking the life longevity of their company on that strategy. And this, for right now, at least. I just, as a content creator, and you're putting on my podcaster hat, let's just take this show. Someone comes to us and says, "Hey, Todd and Rob, we can automate the advertising in this podcast, and we'll put a pre-roll on, we'll put a mid-roll on in your show. We'll put 2 ads in it." And we're saying, that sounds good, every episode. That sounds fantastic. Now, let's talk about what you're going to get paid on programmatic. It's going to be like $3-4 net to us per CPM per 1,000.
But Todd, why does it have to be that way? Why does programmatic have to be
That's
such
what they're
low,
buying. That's because
low CPM though.
The
Todd,
media buyers are buying it and streaming at that rate. You're going to go into someone that's buying Pandora at 6 and tell them
you have to. It doesn't. I don't know that it has to go that way.
I understand. I understand that, Rob. But So I've just recently talked to. Matter of fact, I was on a conference call, to be real careful here, with a client of ours, and the client had us talking to their media buyer, and that media buyer was sharing with me how they got ripped upside down one another during a meeting with a potential advertiser, and they're saying, you are in, and they said, this is what they said to them: "You are insane if you think I'm going to pay $20 or $25 CPM for programmatic advertising going into your shows as a pre-roll."
But what if that pre-roll is a host read?
On programmatic, where the media buyer's coming in and can just buy it on demand. That's what programmatic is.
No, I understand, but they're actually having to upload a kind of like an audio file, right? So
But
you have to be able to play something in the podcast too, right? If you're doing programmatic.
true
And
programmatic, that's not real programmatic. Then that's a hybrid.
well,
So
because most brand advertisers create their own spots,
right.
right?
Yep.
And in radio, they basically that's what they're basically inserting
Yep.
is their spots,
And
whether they're 15-second or 30
and
second
that's
or 1
all
minute.
been bought in a platform automatically. They haven't had to talk to a human.
Yep,
They just put their credit card in and rock and roll.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Now, the model that you've talked about is what some others are implementing, but there should be a higher demand for CPM, but it'll never be an automated deal to do that. You're still going to do the face-to-face with the media buyer. You're going to go there. You're going to pitch it. It may be programmatically inserted automatically, but you're still going to need to do that
Go.
deal by hand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If someone figures out how to do that deal at 20 without ever talking to someone, sign me up. They can take every last bit of our entire inventory. They can have it all.
I guess my question is, I mean, is that just a generational issue? I mean, I know I saw it a lot at Podcast One too when I was working there. This question, I heard a lot of people say that, oh yeah, it's never going to be done online. It's always going to be done based on personal relationships and all this kind of stuff. But I don't know that that's entirely true. I mean,
I think to get the higher CPMs, you're going to have a pitch just
yeah,
because they can buy everything else cheap.
yeah.
They can buy it real cheap.
Well, and then I guess there's another side to it too, which is, how does that host read or that audio advertisement get produced, right?
Yeah.
That's the other part of this question.
Well,
Programmatic presents some challenges in that.
well, it can be done. Let's be honest. If someone told me, make your copy and upload it, I could do
So
that. I can do a host endorsed ad. And sadly, if they want it to be 60 seconds, it's probably not going to be 60 seconds. It's going to be whatever the length is.
it could be a minute, minute and a half,
2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I've went long on my, but my advertisers feeding my family and keeping my lights on too. So I take care of my advertiser.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
But you only have one advertiser. So
right.
there's other shows that I've worked on that have 3 or 4 advertisers.
Well, that might get into the point of the show being annoying unless it's 3
Yeah,
hours long. But
that's right.
yeah, so it can be done, but then you have to plan for your show production where you're going to drop that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's kind of awkward. All right, folks, we're going to take a break and go for this sponsor message. Do you introduce it that way? I wouldn't in my show. In my show, I transgress or naturally
You transition them
transition.
easily.
Yeah,
Yeah, smoothly,
smoothly. Yeah,
not abruptly. Because I mean, the truth is that's like putting up a stop sign.
yeah,
Stop listening.
yeah.
Fast forward.
So you're going to have to be able to become good at transitioning. And probably we're going to all have to train ourselves to be able to transition smoothly.
Well,
So
then,
that
yeah, and how do you do that, right?
you almost have to have that copy there in front of you so that you remember the words that you actually said.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I mean, I've heard it done a million different ways.
Yeah.
I've heard it done where people they'll and it gets back to the dynamic insertion question too. Is that if you're doing dynamic insertion of host reads, how do you transition those pre-produced host reads in your show between live content and dynamic insertion? My contention has been you basically, as a host, you complete your thought and stop talking.
Stop talking, and then start talking.
And then the dynamic insertion comes in, starts talking again, and it's a little bit more of a smooth transition between those two. There's other shows that I've heard that will either say at the end of their thought that they'll say, well, up next we have our sponsor message, support this sponsor, and then that host endorsement will
We'll
happen
start.
at that point. But to me, that's like a stop sign, right?
Yeah.
You don't necessarily want that. I think the advertiser, if you're clear about your advertising message when you start your read,
Yeah.
they will know that this is
Right.
a host endorsement, right? You don't have to put up a stop sign that says, well, we're going to take a break now.
Yep.
And start doing it, because, as was written in the Wall Street Journal this past week or last week, we have a problem with ad skipping in podcasting.
Yeah,
right,
whatever. Whatever. I have absolutely. I see millions of downloads, and I know exactly what's happening during those downloads.
Yeah.
We do not have an ad skipping problem in the podcast.
No, I mean, think about how people are listening to this content. They're walking, they're running, they're on a train. They're not looking at their screen with their finger ready to push the skip button.
No,
they're not.
Not at all. Some people may skip a whole first 15 minutes of a show like they do on mine when I'm jibber-jabbering too much. They could do that.
I don't know, Todd, if that's happening. That wouldn't be happening to your show. People connect with you at that personal level.
And I've said it many times, Rob, there's a reason why Raw Voice Blueberry has not built an insertion system. There's a reason that we haven't. And, am I ruling out that we won't? No. I will build one at some point. But when we do, it's going to be, Todd's way of building it and how it will work. And am I perfect all the time? No, we've thrown plenty of stuff up against the wall that's went splat and fell off. So am I going to get it right the first go? Who knows?
But like I said earlier, Todd, there's a lot of business development activity happening around companies that have that technology right now.
Well, that's great.
So it's like, is it early or is it just wrong?
It's not wrong. It's not right. Good luck to them.
It's what it is. I mean, a lot of the big players in the space want it in their toolkit, right?
Yep, that's fine.
Will they ever use it is the question, and that's the question I keep asking. Is that
they'll use it, and believe me, when the brand advertisers come and they bring their own ads, that's when it's going to get used. When you're delivered a spot, but then.
But is it going to work? Is it going to convert, right? Versus a host read, right?
It's going to convert just like it does on TV and radio, and that's why the cost
is going to come down.
It's going to come down for sure.
Yeah. So I think we've got, this is a dilemma that the industry needs to really get their hands around. I mean, it's not.
I think the average guy, the average podcaster, they're not going to run this at all. The show that's less than 10,000 downloads per episode, they're not. And then when you get above that, maybe. But still, it's this insertion to be able to do brand advertising where you're dropping the Ford ad pre-roll about their summer special or whatever it is, or their new models coming out. That'll get, the podcaster's going to get net $3 or $4 out of that CPM. And if they're doing 100,000 listens per episode, that's a nice little check.
Yeah. Well, Todd, now you can see why a lot of people want high numbers in the podcasting space.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, too bad. We all, okay, so we all want big numbers. Hey, I want 100,000 people listening to this show. Will that many ever listen? Never.
No.
We know.
Expect that either.
No, we know the audience size. But do a regular podcaster want 100,000? Absolutely, they want 100,000 listeners per episode. That's a podcaster's wet dream, right? You get 100,000 listeners per episode. That's quit your day job type numbers. That's a live a different lifestyle numbers, and but it's
harder and harder to achieve that.
Right. So, and even for the established people, they're doing all the cross promotion and all that. It's very, very difficult. So, again, all these companies that want to do this insertion, and they have a very limited number of shows that they're all fighting for. And at some point we will get to a point in the podcasting space, and I frankly thought we'd already be there. And the reason why I haven't built this is because we're not there. Is where we're basically going to say, hey, you have no advertising in your show. We can do 2 spots an episode. Yep, you're only going to get $3 net. Do you want it or not? And we may get to the point where we'll get a couple thousand shows that will have never been able to get advertising no matter what, that may say something's better than nothing. Do I really want, is that an outlook I want to talk about? No, because I want everyone at high CPMs. And that's why so many times smaller shows want to monetize, and they can, but they actually need to set realistic expectations.
Yeah.
That golden deal where the guy calls you and says, oh my God, I'm a fan. I love your show. This is my product. What's it going to cost to advertise in your show? And you go back, $500 an episode. And because the guy loves your show and he's got a business and he just wants to reach your audience, he's going to pay $500 an episode.
And it's not impossible.
No, and those deals,
I've known that to happen.
Those deals
happened with my own show.
Sure, those deals you want those deals to walk in every day, right? But in reality, that's those are rare, really rare.
Well, and that's actually a really good kind of example of what can happen with a really niche show.
Yeah.
Ones that are focused on a particular area, like maybe cars or something, or areas that have big dollar transaction products. I
knew a neurosurgeon that did and I think I've told this story before, did a neurosurgeon podcast. He had 1,500 neurosurgeons tuning into his show, and he was talking about stuff that would make most of us, our eyes glaze over. But he was talking to that community, and he was getting quit your practice money and put a down payment on a yacht.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Okay, so the pharmaceuticals and the people that they have dumb money. Dumb money being that they just write checks.
That's because they have so much.
Right. And this guy was his 1 hour podcast was netting him $20,000 an episode. So that is niche.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for that. A lot of content producers out there just do these generic shows that really they try and cover a lot of different topics, and that can work at scale, just like radio has in the past.
Yeah.
But oftentimes the shows that go niche, that have a large number of people that are interested in that niche, are the ones that typically do the best.
Yeah.
And that's, some of those niches are pretty much already locked up, so it's difficult to come up with them now.
I don't think they're difficult. I think you have to be the right person. I think you have to be able to be that guy. You have to have been if you spent the last 20 years working as a bricklayer, and you want to talk about new technology and bricklaying, and that's what you should do.
I talked to a guy here in Seattle. This was probably 6 months ago or so, who was doing a pool podcast because he actually cleans pools for a living.
So and how many different topics can you talk about? It's pool cleaning. Can you go 2 years on? Is there 2 years worth of content talking about cleaning pools?
That's a good question.
But
that's where it gets tough, right?
Yeah. So, or was he then selling, instructional videos on to potential people that want to get in the pool cleaning business. I know that's big in many cities. There's always a handful of pool guys in towns.
Well, I mean, he was talking about on his show, you know, chemicals with your pool, different
Right.
climates, how different climates affect your pool, and so in some ways, I think he was catering to other pool cleaning
Yeah.
people,
Yeah. Well, in that,
as well as people that have pools themselves.
and if that guy had 1,000 or 2,000 pool cleaners listening to his show, that guy could quit the pool cleaning business and just because he'd be able to go to all those companies that provide those products and services and actually use them and come back and give a report and say, yes, I've been using this company's products. I love it. Blah 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 blah.
Hmm.
That that's a that's not a $25 CPM deal.
Yeah.
That's a flat rate. All right, let's talk like 10, 15, $20 per listener deal.
So
What's
Todd,
it worth to you?
this is a very niche show. How come we're not making the big bucks?
It's
I'm just kidding.
well, in a sense, Rob, I talk about Blueberry, you talk about Spreaker.
In some ways, it's yeah.
And people probably will migrate and look over at our services because of that. So in a sense, there's
That's true.
tangible benefits.
Sure.
And we also
But
might piss people off and drive us away from us too. That might be a case as well.
yeah, well, and I think we don't really talk that much about our companies, really. I mean, I think we do off and on. I know I don't specifically try and come on this show to talk about, what's happening at Spreaker.
Right.
So I've never done that really with any of the podcasts that I do, that are kind of outside of the company that I work
Yeah.
for. Just because it's about the content. It's not about me trying to
Right.
promote what I'm doing. Oftentimes I get invited, and I'm sure you do too, to go on other people's podcasts and talk about Spreaker or whatever. And in some ways that's fine, but in some ways I also um, that causes me to pause a little bit, because the reason that I go on other shows is really to help
Yep.
share knowledge about podcasting, and not so much just promote the company I work for, because that's not really of great value to listeners.
Where I want people to go to find about my companies, go to my company's podcast, and we're gonna, and
Yeah.
even the podcasts we do over there, we have guests on that use competing services, and
Yep.
we talk about stuff happening in the space, and we don't necessarily, like a big topic like we just talked about a little while ago about this priority partner thing. Yeah, I went on and talked with Mackenzie about that for about 30 minutes, got deep down in the weeds on it. But
Yep.
a week-to-week show with her, when she's doing that, she may mention something that we've got going on and point to that, but it's not the focus. It's not a sales channel for us. It's it's an information channel.
Yeah, and you're also really clear. It's the same with my Spreaker Live show. You're really clear that this is an official podcast from
Right.
Spreaker, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at the content that I produced at the Podcast Movement event for Spreaker Live,
Purely
um,
interviews.
I didn't talk about Spreaker at all.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways with me.
Mm-hmm.
If there's at some point during the program, we have a new product that's coming out, or we have a big update or something, I'll mention it on the show and talk just core about the features of it. And that's one of the advantages of having a show like that, is to be
Yeah.
able to share more detailed information about the platform and what's happening. But the core of the show is really trying to share ideas and tips to help podcasters um, make their shows better. So that's the focus of it. And I know that's kind of what we're trying to do here, is just to share our kind of experience and our knowledge of so many years in this medium, and what we see in the space today, and really be frank about it, because I don't believe that there's a lot of people really doing what we're doing and talking frankly about what's happening in the space, and really kind of exposing ourselves, and taking a risk here and talking about topics that may be controversial and maybe challenge people in this space. I don't know. do you agree with that? And do you see any backlash from that? Or I mean, I hear a lot of people praising us for
Well,
being so frank and open about what's
I
happening in this medium.
I don't get any negative feedback. But sometimes I don't get as many calls from people as I used to. So,
How would you know that though?
but at the same time, sometimes I feel like I'm a broken record. Sometimes I feel like I'm saying the same damn thing again and again.
Oh yeah, I'm the same. It's the same. I've seen your state of podcasting presentations that you've done for years and years and years now, and your percentage breakdowns of how many people have a RSS feed on their website and all this stuff, and it seems to be the same percentages.
It changes a little bit, and sometimes it changes for the better. Sometimes it changes for the worse.
Yeah.
So, I just, I think you and I are both big fans of the space. We're trying to be protectors of it.
Yeah.
And it goes back again to the commentary that, and I hate to call them out like this, but the suits have arrived, and the suits don't do podcasts.
Yeah, there's good and bad with that. Right?
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do is keep everybody kind of level-headed and really understanding the medium, because a lot of those, like you say, a lot of those suits don't really come from this medium. And that can be good,
right?
Maybe some new ideas.
Yep.
But that needs to be filtered against what the reality is, and not. And I don't know. I mean, some of the ideas are, maybe they'll be true. I don't know. Like the name change. Is the term podcast going to be important 10 years from now? I don't know.
I think so. But one thing I also consider, Rob, I consider us to be, call a spade when we see it, and damn the consequences and protect the space. And
and we're not going to be able to keep working this space forever. I mean, there's going to have to be somebody else that comes in and fills our void. We're not, youngsters anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, who's going to hold the mantle of this medium in the long run? I think that there's people that are out there that are younger, that I think see the world the same way, or similar to what we see. But is that going to be a generational thing where we're going to see, what's the shifts that you see with the younger podcasters that are coming up that are strongly advocates for
I don't
this
think
medium?
I don't think they care. I think they just want to create great content and get it out there. I don't see it, and maybe I'm missing. And if someone else that's a strong advocate in the space that's out there beating the bandwagon, please let me know. Rob, if you know someone, please call them out on the show, because frankly, we need some younger champions, and I don't necessarily know if they're out there yet. And also another thing too is as you and I get a little grayer, and there's a hell of a lot more gray in my hair now than when I started this thing 12 years ago, started podcasting 12 years ago, is that I also don't want to be that old dog. You and I both have to be making sure we're keeping our eyeballs open too to changes. And, I question myself all the time whether or not, a statement that I have made still holds true.
Yeah.
It was tough for me to change this thing at Raw Voice on this advertising stuff, because, and to be honest with you, because we just had such a open relationship with content creators that we really didn't have to have like this kind of like agreement thing. It just kind of goes against me. But also at the same time, I understood that space was changing and we had to change, or we were at high risk of alienating media buyers. So I think you and I both have to make sure that, and I think you're doing a good job at that so far, in adjusting where we need to adjust, in as trends change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I don't think any of us know, what this space is going to look like 4 or 5 years from now. I mean, who knows? It may not change very much at all.
Well, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, we're not as far along as I thought we would be. I thought we'd be.
agree.
I thought we'd be much further along.
Yep.
Much further along. Business is good. I'm not complaining. And for those of you that are customers out there for both Rob's and Ike's companies, thank you for spending money with us and allow us to keep doing what we're doing. But I'd like to see a lot more outgoing than incoming. I'd like to see a lot more going into podcasters' pockets. I mean, I'd like to see a hell of a lot more going into podcasters' pockets because I'll be frank. I'm at 1,133 episodes with my Geek News Central podcast. If GoDaddy hadn't continued to be a sponsor for 11 years straight, I love doing the show, but I sure as heck couldn't have done everything that I've done. And we have to find ways. And if it's not just advertising, we need to make sure podcasters know that they need to, have listener support. There's got to be ways that they can. Some people say, "I don't need no money." God bless you. But there's some podcasters that need equipment money, dinner money, hosting money, car payment money. And I'd like to see every content creator that's so opted to be able to do so quickly.
Well, Todd, I think that leads me into thinking about another topic that I'm hoping to talk about on the show, and maybe we can expand on to it over the subsequent episodes a little bit. Is that are there alternatives to advertising that may be on the horizon in the future based on technology changing? And I think sometimes on this show we kind of get, we talk about big technology shifts and technology changes, less about podcasting, but how kind of like the online world is evolving and changing. And maybe there's a new kind of advertising or revenue share opportunity out there that's coming or potentially coming in the future based on technology shifts. I hope there is, some sort of maybe a different type of relationship that's enabled through virtual reality and location-based services that can be matched up with audio programs that can maybe flip the paradigm of what advertising is as it relates to audio programming. And some of the things that I'm thinking about is that maybe audiences are more enabled to input their product needs to a program, and a program kind of has this exchange of value with the audience that maybe can be expanded upon, that can create value for the listener as well as the show through monetization of some sort of an exchange of interest and product services and some sort of value exchange for their attention. So I don't know. Have you done any thinking on that?
Well, it's funny you talk about the VR stuff. I've got some notional stuff that I've been considering, but I don't have a show that would support what I've been thinking about. So, as an example, if I was doing a travel podcast or a informational podcast, educational, anything where you're demonstrating or can share while you're talking in a more immersive way, I'd be doubling down and buying VR gear, and at least starting to learn the craft, so that as VR becomes more readily available. And I think you look at Scoble, he's all in on virtual right now, and he's staked his family's financial future by going to 100% talking about virtual reality. And I think what will end up happening is that smart content creators will start to look and start to learn the craft, so that as more VR comes on the market, that they'll hone their skills, so that you look at Chris Christensen The guy's traveling all over the world.
Yeah.
He's doing, amazing stuff. He should have VR cameras.
Yeah.
And his strolls through Venice or through some obscure Italian vineyard or wherever he is getting taken to talk about, at this point, he should have a backpack with a VR camera sticking off the top of it. And that is going to be huge. And what he could do for that is listen to audio podcasts for free, but get the virtual reality tour for $49.95 that you're, prior to you going on vacation, you can figure out where the hell you're going to go look at. Pick some stuff to go see and not see.
Yeah.
The VR world is still going to be a podcast? Well, if it can be distributed in a media file, it sure is.
Yeah. And can there be a different type of relationship that a show has with an audience than is, enabled today? I mean, where the audience maybe has. I've been thinking about this for a couple of years now. Of you start thinking about affiliate programs, but why couldn't an audience member have as an affiliate relationship themselves,
right, and
share that relationship with other listeners to a show, and then that show just becomes a conduit and and gets a commission for connecting those audiences together and shares revenue with its audience and with the show.
I'm doing those deals right now with Blueberry, with companies where it could have been done with as a host. If a listener came to me and said, Todd, man, I have got Premiere whatever. What can we do to, make some sort of a quid pro quo relationship, right? You get if every listener that you send. But again, is that affiliate, or?
I think it's a hybrid model of affiliate and an audience member sharing with the audience.
Their product
based on their attention to the show. So what the show becomes is an aggregate of community and audience. The audience actually, most people work for a company, right? Most people they may be able to enable an affiliate type relationship that has a value to just that listening community. And the show itself gets a commission off of that transaction.
I think that's huge. That would be, and those are interesting deals to work, and you have to figure, that's all. It's a lot of experimentation to make that happen. But how do you facilitate that? Well, there was a discussion. I have a Slack channel that some of my audience members have access to. So at some point, I'm probably going to open that up to the entire community. So if I can get the entire community, and many podcasters do this, have an ongoing chat room where the super fans always hang out and talk with one another. But if you've got that kind of base already, usually those shows are already well monetized. But maybe that's something the podcasters that are trying to figure out how to grow their audience, maybe that's where they start.
Because what it seems like to me is that you've enabled a multiple motivation for an audience to join your show. Is that that person is gonna share an offer with the community and participate in the show to share that offer. The show itself benefits from those offers coming in and being shared, and the show works with those contributions at some level to promote them, and based on the fact that they get a commission off of that. In some ways, it's a hybrid model between programmatic, in some ways, and in host endorse potentially, depending on what that offer is and how powerful it is. But it could also just be something that's shared to the community that's outside of the show itself, but just the sheer fact that the community exists, there could be a revenue share opportunity. It could be small or it could be big.
if I have an employee that comes to me, we're already selling podcasting services, but let's just think if you're, if you are a business owner and you have an employee say, "Hey, I listened to this podcast and it's a great audience and they're all working together. Is there any kind of special deal I can put together as a company offer that's special to that community?"
Yep.
If I'm the boss, I'm going to be like, "Yeah, if you're reaching these folks, and what is the job of an employee? And the employee's job is to deliver 3 times, 4 times, revenue based on their salary. Any way we get there is good, right?"
Yep.
So as a boss, I'm going to say, "Yeah, let's put a deal together." Sure, and it makes a lot of sense. And why wouldn't a company do that to all their employees? Say, "Hey, if you want to talk to family and friends, we're going to give a extra, let's say 15% or whatever it may be, a little extra deal."
It's multi-level marketing, Todd.
Oh, absolutely.
I know.
Multi-level marketing, employed effectively with
Can work.
it can really work. Right, rules
agree.
based. Yeah, for
Yep.
sure. And matter of fact, if you're a podcaster and you have any type of multi-level marketing business, and they allow you to talk about that publicly and share, if you're not, you should, because you never know when a specific person is looking for a specific need.
Because really, when you back up to the 30,000-foot view or the 60,000-foot view of podcasting, the core of it is word of mouth.
Right.
And that's the core of multi-level marketing, is word of mouth.
Yeah, I'm actively involved in at least 2 or 3 multi-level marketing things. Well, my wife has got she's building a Melaleuca. She does Melaleuca. She doesn't actively go out and find sales folks, but every once in a while someone says, "Oh, we like Melaleuca stuff too. Can we buy it?" And we're like, "Why don't you buy it at wholesale?" And we turn them on to that, and it's a variety of other things that we've done in the past. So it's not, it may not end up. It's going to take time. It's the marathon. It's not the sprint. But little things over time will add up, especially if they, if your audience already trusts you. And you're not just coming in being some scummy salesperson.
Yeah.
I think that, you'll do well.
So in the last minute or two of the show here, what might that interaction look like, right, between an audience and a show? It feels like that somehow the technology would need to be enabled somehow for that person to have offers related to them that could be easily shared, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to have this kind of, they got to build up, fill out this huge form or something like that for every show that they want to connect with. It almost needs to be like something that exists with your presence online somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to be enabled through somebody like a Facebook or Google or somebody like that ultimately, but it could be. I don't.
Why is Facebook? Why are they not? Why are they not capitalizing on that already? Because if I have a great experience with a product, where am I most likely going to share that? I'm probably going to share that on Facebook. At the same time, that's the first place I go if I've had a bad experience with a company. I go over there and double barrel shotgun them on Facebook. So you would think that Facebook would want to, but what they don't want. Well, here's what they want to do, Rob. They don't want a quid pro quo where I, as a Facebook user, are going to be able to earn money by making a positive comment on Facebook. They're going to want to say, "Oh, Todd just said something positive about X, so we're going to put an ad to all his followers about that." And Facebook's going to profit. It'll be taken. We're never going to get a piece of that.
Yeah.
And maybe rightly so, because then Facebook turns into this just one big marketing platform. It already is.
Not already?
Yeah. Well, we are the product over there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't want to make our listeners the product either. So that's another thing we have to be careful of.
Yeah. there's some delicate lines that have to be walked, but it just doesn't feel like advertising, the traditional advertising model, is going to be something that's going to fully scale for the podcasting space. As you think about, I think over the next 5 or 10 years, we're going to see 500,000 podcasts that are going to be in this medium on a global basis. And how do each one of those ones have an opportunity, whether or not they actually do it or not, to generate some revenue off of their efforts?
Here's where I've always said, Rob, that if I could get even 50% of my audience to contribute $2 a month to my show, the thing, I could have like 3 assistants. I could have a studio. I'm not kidding. It would be incredible what I could do if the audience just gave $2. If my entire audience on Geek News Central gave $2 a month, I'd do a show every day. I'd do five.
Or even $1 a month, right?
Yeah, I'd do a show every day. That would, I might kill myself doing it, but it's there's such a fine, you think about an audience, a show. Okay, if a podcast has 1,000 listeners, that's very achievable by most shows, and if 50% of those gave $2 in $1,000 a month, that's life-changing for a lot of podcasters. That's a car payment. That's an apartment. Maybe get you real close to paying your rent. Probably doesn't get you all the way there to pay your house payment, but an extra $1,000 in people's pockets a month is life-changing. So maybe really what the goal is that we need to get these audiences to be understanding. Maybe that's where we need to go. That just $2 can change. And if I'm listening to 10 shows, that's $20 a month. What is that? That's nothing if I love the content. So maybe that's where we should focus, is the audience support model.
Yeah.
Because the audience can take care of this tomorrow.
Yeah.
The Patreon thing works good, but it's clumsy.
But then, how is that enabled? That would have to be enabled through all the distribution platforms, and there's going to be a revenue share relationship.
Yep. Then you're giving a piece of your $2 to Joe Blow.
Apple or...
Yeah. I've always said a PayPal link is always the best. That way I get it all.
But that might be a conversation for Apple. Maybe that's an opportunity for Apple.
Right.
Maybe they do get 30% of that. It seems reasonable to me.
Yeah. But, as hard as I've tried, even on my show, as big a show as I have, less than 100 people that are contributing. So,
And it becomes more challenging the more content's available, right?
Yeah. But
for
I
free.
think on average, though, still the average listeners still probably only listen, the hardcore podcast listeners, 5-6 shows. Yeah. So it's really not an issue. What if they're only listening to 3 shows? Then
but a lot of people churn through shows too, Todd, and
right.
that's where the challenge gets back in,
yeah.
right?
I've had people listen for a couple of years, leave for a couple of years, come back for a couple of years. Yep. All the time I'm getting emails, hey, I'm back. Didn't even know you're gone, but thanks for coming back. Yeah.
Yeah. What is usually the reason they come back? Is it just...
Did they get burned out on some other show? They want to come back.
We just see what's new with you.
Yeah. We all do that. I've listened. There's a show I was listening to for a long time. I kind of got, man, I get a little burned on these guys. I went and found something else and listened for a while, and then I went back. So that's what audiences do.
Mm-hmm.
The key is to try to
around.
Yeah, the key is to try to keep them for a period of time. You want them to come and stay for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing your job, they will. But but most podcasters don't make it to 2 years, so they don't get to experience this.
Yeah, that's true. Because back when I was working on Zune, I saw my my subscription churn on the platform, and it was usually like 50% a week.
Oh, if I had 50% churn a week on my show, that would be no way. There's no way there's 50% churn.
Really?
I can't imagine it being that high.
Well, I saw as far as people unsubscribing and subscribing.
Wow.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about individual shows. I'm just talking about the whole platform.
Oh, that's interesting.
People were unsubscribe at almost an equal basis to subscribe.
The key though is keeping a few extras so that you get a 2 or 3% growth rate a month.
That's right. Exactly.
I'm getting a lot of people subscribing, but I also know that incrementally the show is moving up at a certain rate.
Yeah. Well, I mean that subscribe and unsubscribe, and this was quite a few years ago, so this is old information. But it would vary. So some weeks it would be up, more subscriptions. Other weeks there'd be more unsubscribes. It would be kind of back and forth. So that creates either growth or decline in overall subscriptions.
Right.
Week over week, but generally it would be pretty equal across the board. Week over week, people would be churning through subscriptions.
Yeah. So the question then for those of you that are listening, what are you doing? Have you had success in alternate revenue generating models? What is working for you? What is not? I'd like to hear from the podcasters to tell me, yep, I'm getting good success in people, contributing $1 or $2 a month. Are you providing bonus material when they do? What are you? What are you doing? Where are you finding success? So,
and there probably just needs to be across the industry, and those that are listening to this, if you're looking to start a new company or you're looking to do something different in this medium, and is that let's all put our heads together and see what we can come up with a new revenue model for podcasting, and not be so dependent on the traditional radio-like advertising model.
And Rob,
fund the future of this medium.
And for people that listen to this show, if you want to contribute $20 a month to us, then if everyone did that, then Rob and I might actually be able to hire an assistant.
I don't need an assistant. But I mean, I would, it's not like I would want to quit my job either.
Right.
My job is work, but it's also, my hobby and my passion too. So
right.
I don't really want to quit my job anyway.
Yeah.
So, because we're both lucky enough to be able to call our jobs podcasting.
Yeah.
So not everybody can do that.
No. And I want more people to do that. Where did I have lunch yesterday? I had lunch at the beach. And I posted a couple of, there was lots of cute little bikinis running around. It was nice, So, have a little lunch, got a little nice trade wind, sit in the shade in a lawn chair, and packed a lunch, and it was for an hour. We want everyone to be able to do that, And for the ladies, there was lots of fit young men running around too. Anyway, I think we're already over, but.
I think we are too.
If you guys send us some feedback, what he wants to talk about, and lots of chat in the chat room today over on the newmediashow.com live. So thank you for your comments, and let's see if there was any. Good. I am glad you are not burned out yet.
Todd and I had no idea what we were going to talk about today before we turned on
no clue.
the webcams.
I woke up this morning, I'm like, I better look at the podcasting news, and I loaded Pod to Pod, and I went over to podtopod.com, and I was like, a lot of podcasters talking about podcasting, but not a lot of outside news. So, this is different, though. This is probably the first time we've seen a decline in news coverage in a while. So maybe the hype cycle is over.
Again. When's it coming back again?
Well,
was it another year and a half?
One of you out there needs to figure out how to have an explosive show or get the president to, I tell you what, get Hillary Clinton and Trump in the same room. That would be a good podcast to do. Have a boxing match. Make Trump tie one arm behind his back and let her have both hands and then let him go.
There you go. I know. There's, something needs to happen.
Yeah,
to
so something.
Kind of break the
log
jam right now.
That's what podcasters have to do. They got to work their angles. They got to work, go outside the box. Think about what would really kick my show into the stratosphere. What can I do? And then, think of the outlandish and go for it.
Yeah.
That's because if you think about it, a lot of these shows, how they've really, they're like, wow, I wish I would have thought of that.
Trumpcast.
I think did anybody listen to it?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I didn't. I don't listen to any political shows because I get pissed off enough I'm seeing on Facebook. So
yeah.
Please on Facebook, be nice. Let's just talk about our families and what we had for lunch. We need the Facebook stuff.
Tone it down, right?
I had to take a break. It was stressing me out and make me want to go out and fight.
Send Todd some boxing gloves.
No, it's true, Rob. The hate on both sides.
Oh, I know. It's getting toxic.
Stop. We have to stop. Let's quit talking. Let them do their. Everyone knows who they're voting for. If you haven't made up your mind already, get over it. Make up your mind, and let's quit talking about politics. We'll all go vote in November and be done with this thing.
Yeah, well, it's just getting started now.
Jesus.
Right?
And one thing I'm thankful for in Hawaii, we don't get political ads because they know how the state's going to vote. They don't. They don't spend no money.
They don't spend any money.
None.
Right.
Yeah, you get some local politicians ads, but those, if you're watching local channels, you get them. But otherwise, there's, I don't see any of this garbage that the rest of you are going to be subjected to. If you live in Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, at some of these swing states, you're just forget TV for the next 3 months.
Yeah, that's true.
It's disgusting. Fire them all. That's what I say.
Yes.
All right, everybody. Todd at newmediashow.com. Or, of course, you can reach me at Geek News on Twitter. And please, if you're into tech, definitely consider watching my tech show at geeknewscentral.com. Rob?
I'm at Rob Greenlee on Twitter, and that's with 2 E's. And I do the Spreaker live show every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern at Spreaker or at SpreakerLiveShow.com. And that's probably the best way. And if you want to send me an email, you can send it to Rob at Spreaker.com, and that's with an R. And I have a website, RobGreenlee.com too.
And being that we're doing this show now back in here in the studio, if you want to pop in from time to time and add commentary, definitely let us know. We can give you the Skype line to call in and make comments. I think unless Blab fixes itself, it's hit or miss with them, so no guarantee. But we will definitely be on newmediashow.com/live, or we'll be over on Facebook as well. So. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back here next week with the New Media Show. Everyone, take care. See ya.
Bye.
Okay, folks on YouTube. I know there were some streaming problems, but you all hung tight. So thanks for being on the stream on YouTube. Thank you so much.